Hello everyone, this is a quick overview of the model named Goon and some of his control schemes. In the file called start, figure 8 start.ma, this one right here, if you open this, it'll open with Goon and you're looking out of a camera view. If you just hit the space bar here and switch over to a perspective view, can kind of show you some of the different controls that are available to Goon. I'm going to switch to panel layout, a 2-panel layout. Okay, so basically this character has a lot of different controls available to animate. These controls are in the shape of spline or NURBS curves. So each one of these at the top here, if you want to move them up and down, they're constrained to one axis. You can manipulate the eyebrows of the character. Let me just move this. You can animate this. And he also has a control up at the top that'll allow you to change the stretch of his mesh. So if you hold down or just press or type in any number between 0 and 1, you can get an idea of what type of morphic features he has. This is kind of a multiplier, this volumetric stretch, I think. But this is a unique feature to this character rig where you can modify the mesh, and so that you'll find on this NURBS curve if you click on this circle NURBS curve. The mesh or the character model has both FK forward kinematics and inverse kinematics. So let's look at the forward kinematics, which are the rings that are situated across the arm. So if I attempt to rotate any of these, if they're in FK mode, you'll immediately see that the arm is moving. And the parent will influence the child down the chain. That's forward kinematics, meaning the parent influences the child all the way down the chain. IK is the opposite of that. IK would allow us to move the hand and have that position go backwards up the chain and figure out for us where that elbow should be. So you could see that these curves right now are, if I just click on one curve and I just rotate the model, you can see that this curve is influencing all of the children in that hierarchy. So this is currently set up for FK. Now if I just open up a panel to show you, pardon me while I look for a layout that shows you the hypergraph. Okay, so you can kind of see this is the root, and this particular curve is somewhere in this chain. It's quite long. That is not it. Okay, there. So I clicked on this particular piece and then I pressed this button called frame selection. So this will let this hypergraph editor zoom in on the area so you could see that this is the parent of these children here, and this goon rig hand right forward kinematic control is a child of this control. So these two controls are in a parent-child relationship. So that's FK, and they're named appropriately. So everything that you would do here, if you want to animate in FK, this is in FK mode right now. So if I pressed S to set a key and I rotate this down and I set a key, this will basically animate the character's arm going up and down. Okay, well, there might be a situation where we want to switch this over. So there's a control to allow us to switch between FK and IK mode. So I'm going to move these keyframes over. So if we click on this spline shape here, this six-sided hexagon, I guess, you should see there's an IK weight. The IK weight value is set to 0. So right now it's set to 0, and in this case it's not turned on. IK is not turned on. It's either going to be 0 or 1 for what you need. The IK weight is not enabled, so that's a 0. So we want to be able to control this arm in two different fashions, just like and the legs have a similar control. So we can set a key here for the inverse kinematics, IK weight of being 0. And so in the beginning of this animation, it's just doing a real simple arm raise, and we're not using IK. But say maybe at frame 6 we want to turn IK on, so we just type in 1. So now IK is in control of that arm. So I'll go ahead and key that change. So here we have 0. FK is using FK, and then all of a sudden at frame 6 now we're using IK. So now we have a different set of controls enabled for us. Now we have this diamond, and I'll click on that and zoom in. Goon rig hand right inverse kinematic control. This is a different part of the chain, and I'm just going to switch this over to the front so I get at least two different views of this. But if you notice here, the circle controls on the rig are now hidden from view, and now I'm selecting the place between the wrist and the hand, and this is going to go backwards up the chain. It's going to figure out it, just like the word inverse kinematics. So it's operating inversely, and now I can move the position of the hand and everything else up this chain here to a certain point is going to automatically resolve itself. So right now we're at frame 6, and just undo that because you're right here. So I could position this, I can set a key for this controller right here at 6 and then move and also rotate this controller. I'm just using W and E to do this. I'm gonna hit S again to set that key again. So at frame 5, we're FK mode. You can still see the rings, and then at 6, all of a sudden we're using IK mode. Okay, so now we're just gonna take a look at the foot controls. The foot controls on Goon should by default be using IK. So right here is the IK solver, this diamond right here. So if I just move this up, you can see that his leg, his knee, all the way up the chain, everything is resolving so that when you move that pivot point up, everything is solving for that position. And if you click on this NURBS controller here or on the other side, they're set for IK weight, for it to be using IK weight. Now here you can see like there are rings here, so you can't use the rings to do anything. So don't always depend on looking at the rings to determine whether or not you're in IK or FK mode, because this is a good example of why that could be deceiving. So you always want to check on that controller just to make sure your IK weight is set or not set. So on here, if I set this to 0, then we should have the ability to rotate our rings now, or pivot at the waist. So that should be enough information on that. The rest of this rig is also something that can be customized. So if needed, you could add more height to the neck, for example, if you needed more height for his neck, or mesh deformation for the head, for the depth of the head. Can't see why you need it, but if you needed to use him as a stand-in for another character mesh, maybe that had a long head, you could do that. And then these as well. Here's like the length of his arm, lower arm left, lower arm right. So you can kind of modify these things as needed. The controls for the eyes are set up so that the pupil will look at these NURBS curves here that are I believe fixed to the camera. So if you click on the top ring of his head, there's an eye follow, and that can either be turned on or off on these. This is actually for the left, for his right eye. So if you select these two and just, you can open his eyes, or I can just select both of these, shift select, grab these, and then middle mouse, and then we can open his eyes, and then where this NURBS curve is located will actually dictate where his pupil is looking. So you can see as I move this around, his pupil's moving. And then same as this for his left eye. And then this should be the root controller for both. And if you look at the hierarchy, that should follow wherever he is located. So everything is parented to the root. So that's kind of how he works. You can zero that out. This is also the center of mass. So if you're in IK mode, you can have this set up so that it will resolve the knee bend as well. So that's the basic setup of Goon. And there's a lot more that he has in terms of like mouth movements and things like that. This is a clavicle. He's going to move his shoulders up and down. Here's the neck controller. So yeah, please feel free to email me if you have any further questions. Thank you.